Actually, the mechanics of it are one of the most interesting parts. It's a secondary or an employee tender. In other words, if you are a existing employee or even a former employee, you can sell your shares in OpenAI. The eligibility requirements were that you held them or you had a vesting period of 2 years. But the reason I say that's interesting is that this is a valuation dictated by a third-party group of investors buying those shares from employees. Okay. So the company doesn't raise any new money, but there has to be a valuation set because a price has to be set. And so these investors wanted even more. They wanted like $10 billion worth of employee shares. In the end, they got $6.6 billion. So what does that tell you? There's probably a load of OpenAI employees that were like, you know what? I'm not going to sell. I'm holding on. Because if I'm at $500 billion valuation, and there's still a corporate restructure to go through, a future IPO maybe, then hold. So I thought that was really fascinating. But I would just point out that Shireen Ghaffari, a really talented colleague of mine out in San Francisco, Bloomberg Newsroom, she did break this story on August 6th.
Awesome.
So this is just the close of the round.
Okay, so now that OpenAI is valued at $500 billion, that puts it over SpaceX, which is valued at $400 billion. And I bring this up because there's a common thread between OpenAI and SpaceX, and that is Elon Musk.
Elon Musk and
was
his,
once part of OpenAI before leaving under some clouds.
Yep, he has a fractious relationship specifically with Sam Altman, the other founder and now CEO of OpenAI. What I've written a lot about in Bloomberg Businessweek magazine and in some of the reporting is present day Musk has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder.
You think?
Well, specifically about the idea that XAI, his AI company, should have a valuation that is near to OpenAI's. So there's been litigation. There's a public forum slinging match on social media between the two. Sam Altman gets asked about it a lot, but I think that the main thing is that remember also that XAI has, as we've reported, it sought to raise money at a $200 billion valuation this year. It's tides and rising ships in that field, really.
So do we know who is selling here in this round?
No, I mean, all I know about is the eligibility rules. The one thing I've reflected on reading the story and speaking to sources at the company is, remember in November of 2022 when Sam Altman was briefly ousted from OpenAI? There was just a few hundred people that worked there at that time.
Wow. Yep.
So that was 3 years ago. And almost 3 years ago, now there are thousands of people that work there. Some tenure would probably be a factor here.
Okay, so now the world's biggest startup, worth $500 billion, but OpenAI is not making money. It's not profitable.
Yeah. So on Monday, OpenAI has its Dev Day, its Developers Day in San Francisco, and I'll be going. And it's a good opportunity to ask hard questions like these. There's a data point that's going around right now, which is that OpenAI is only converting 2% of its free users to paid subscribers. Now that, for me, is an interesting data point.
Yep.
So the spin on that is that there's a lot of room for growth.
Right, and so, software, this is core BI analysis, right? Software is traditionally a higher margin business. But the problem is that because of compute expenses and OpEx, now talent compensation, even the revenue they are making probably ain't that high margin, is it? If at all. So the big question is, okay, if we know that you're not really doing a lot to convert the consumer from free to paid, what's your enterprise business look like? And that's probably the domain where we'll focus. Hey, when you even do a secondary or a tender with employees, you got to put a deck together that justifies the valuation. So those group of investors, they will have seen something in the data room that would say this is a $500 billion company. Like, of course they would. That's how it works.
Well, how come you haven't gotten your hands on that deck? Some intrepid reporter.
No, I'll be honest about this. Like, Shireen has been smashing this story. She covers the cover so deeply, and I was on vacation for most of August. I've not tracked it as closely. For me, the big story to focus on with OpenAI is the corporate restructure, where you have a not-for-profit board that owns the for-profit company.